Francisco is barring the Trump administration from refusing asylum to migrants because it used to be not so many people, and now reports that many people are trying to apply for asylum. What is the truth?
The truth is, last numbers I saw, asylum claims are up over 3,000% this decade. And I don't know about you, but I don't see Central America in the middle of a war right now. I don't see,
well, there are conditions that are horrible, but 3,000% is a lot.
Yeah, and look, and bottom line is, Fox has been with this caravan from day one, and you hear these people talk about that they want a better life, they want a job, they want to come to the United States to rejoin family. That doesn't qualify for asylum. But what they know is if they come to the border and they make those magic words and say those magic phrases, they can get a foot into the United States and in the past get released, either not to show up in court. If they show up in court and get a final order, they don't leave. So it was an open border. Now we have a president that says, no, this country's not open to illegal immigration. We're going to follow the law, and we're going to make you come to the port of entry, and so we can meter you in, make sure we know who you are. You'll get your due process. But now you got some federal judge that says that he can't stop those from claiming asylum entry illegally in the United States. This president, everything he's doing operationally to protect this country, he's being met with lawsuits. But we'll certainly, I think he's going to win this lawsuit just like he did the so-called ban, travel ban. They'll win this eventually, but again, some liberal judge in the Ninth Circuit is trying to stop this president from protecting our borders.
So, you know, Tom, when you look at who's coming across the border and what we're going to need to do with them, if what you're saying is true, that very few of them are really going to qualify for asylum, where do we put all these people? Because the detention centers are full. And I made the comment on Outnumbered last hour. The president had talked about tents. I think people in Arizona might be a little sensitive to tents after what's gone on in their state with former Sheriff Arpaio. What are the answers for what are we going to do with these people while they wait or whatever happens? So
to be clear to your audience, Harris, 91%, the latest data on asylum seekers is 91% of Central Americans who pass the credible fear interview on the border do not get credible fear from an immigration judge because they're presenting fraudulent claims that don't qualify under the rules of asylum, escaping fear, persecution because of religious or their political, positions. So the facts are facts. 9 out of 10 will lose their case, which means it's loaded with fraud and frivolous claims. But what we do is what the president's doing. He's building, tent cities.
Are you in favor of that?
Absolutely. We got to detain them because here's the issue, and here's why these caravans keep coming. If we don't detain them long enough to see a judge and they get released, many don't show up in court. And even if they do show up in court, 90% get told no, and less than 5% have left the United States. So it is an open borders policy. It had to be detained. I'll give you an example. Back in 2014, when these families first started, and I was still with ICE, we built the first family detention center. We held them long enough till they saw a judge. Most of them lost their cases. We filled planes full of these people and sent them back to Central America, and the numbers on the border declined drastically because we have shown as a nation we're a nation of laws. You can't commit fraud and expect to stay. But it wasn't until, again, the Ninth Circuit ruled you can only hold them for 20 days. The process doesn't happen that quick, the immigration court, so now they get released before they see a judge. Now this president's trying to turn that around and say, no, we're going to get back to the rule of law and we need to hold these people, and I hope he's successful with it.
I know from talking with you and others in the Border Patrol, released for that purpose of putting the illegal immigrant into America. Released is like a full sentence, that word, because it comes with so much. Tom Homan, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good to see you. I want to bring in now Michael Moore, former U.S. Attorney for the Middle District of Georgia. Also good to see you today. Let's talk about, if we can, just the meaning of asylum. You heard Tom Homan there, former ICE acting director, talk about some of the boxes that you have to check. But it came into play for a certain reason. It exists for a certain reason. And if the rules are being bent, what do we do?
Well, this is a great afternoon because I think I'm probably one of the more conservative people on your show, and that is what we do is we follow the law. And if we want to change the law, we want to change the rules as far as how it relates to asylum and how we regulate asylum seekers, then we do that through the Congress. And in this instance, that's what the president did not do. If in fact he wanted to change how and who could apply for asylum, then there was a way to do that, and that's through the will of the people by way of their elected representatives in Congress. And the statute's pretty clear. Congress has said their intent is that people can seek asylum to this country. no matter whether they get here legally or illegally. And so what you see, I think, is that this is a situation where there's been a disparity or a different treatment maybe in people who are coming to the country from the South, and maybe people who are flying into New York City from Soviet bloc countries who claim once they land here that they need to seek asylum. So, you know, it's just simply a matter of following the law. And if you want to change the law, then that's something that can be done through the Congress. And I think that's what the judge said. So
you understand what the White House now wants to appeal. Explain it to the rest of us and whether you think the White House will win that on appeal.
Basically, at this point, what the president is saying is that he thinks under the law he has the authority for national security purposes to regulate who can enter the country. The problem is that what he has done is he has tried to regulate who can seek asylum in the country. And Congress has already passed a law on that. There's a statute that talks about who can and who cannot seek asylum.
And it would take Congress to change that.
That's correct.
So what can the president
remember for
do?
years, well, I mean, you remember for years that we've heard complaints about how the Democratic administrations tried to legislate through executive order. That's exactly what Trump tried to do here. So there's a way to do it. So let's say, for instance, he wants to say, we're not going to let people in the country at this particular time because we've been under attack, or we're going to block certain areas where it's not discriminatory against their religion or their national origin. Because of some specific intel that he's had on national security. Those are things
Isn't he doing that, though? Excuse me, Michael, I don't want to interrupt, but I have limited time with you.
No, you're not interrupting.
Isn't the president doing that when he says that he has solid information? When we hear Secretary Nielsen say there are some 500 criminals among a group that are close to the San Diego border, and that is what they're looking at. Is that the kind of issue, if you will, that the president could use to do it exactly what you're describing?
He can try to do that. The problem is that he sent all these troops down there right before the election when he was ginning up this talk about the caravan and the dangers of the caravan. Now that the election's over, he's pulling the troops back out. That's what makes it look like a stunt. I'm not calling it that, but that's why I think you hear people say that it's a stunt. And I think that's why you have a discord between Mattis and the president. Mattis has a great respect for the military. I'm sure he was out not afraid to get wet during certain Veterans Days. He has a great respect for the military, and he would not use them in a stunt. At this particular time, I think the president, in this circumstance, has used them for a stunt, and that's a problem. And
there are a lot of people who would disagree with you, not the least of which is the president. The president making some breaking news now. We're going to scoot. Thank you for your time. This is happening now. President Trump releasing a new statement which seems to signal the United States will not punish the Saudi crown prince over the murder of columnist Jamal Khashoggi. This is the president is expected to receive a full intelligence report on the matter today. Chief White House correspondent John Roberts is live outside the White House. John?
Good afternoon to you, Harris. And I think you could safely say that this was a statement that was written by the president himself. It mirrors completely the type of language that he has been using. Remember, he talked to Chris Wallace about this in that interview for Fox News Sunday on Friday of last week, in which the president said, well, maybe Mohammed bin Salman, who is the crown prince of Saudi Arabia, was involved in this. Maybe he wasn't. And the statement mirrors that language. The president saying King Salman and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman vigorously deny any knowledge of the planning or execution of the murder of Mr. Khashoggi. Our intelligence agencies continue to assess all information, but it could be very well that the Crown Prince had knowledge of this tragic event. Maybe he did, and maybe he didn't. The president also in this statement raises some questions about Jamal Khashoggi himself, saying representatives of Saudi Arabia say that Jamal Khashoggi was a, quote, enemy of the state and a member of the Muslim Brotherhood. But my decision is in no way based on that. This is an unacceptable and horrible crime. So the president's saying, on the one hand, it's an unacceptable and horrible crime. And by the way, people in Saudi Arabia say he was an enemy of the state. So the president floating that idea, but then at the same time kind of tearing it down. The president also saying we may never know all of the facts surrounding the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. In any case, our relationship is with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. The president repeating in this three-page statement what he has said in the past, that He signed some big contracts a year ago, May, with Saudi Arabia, worth some $450 billion. He doesn't want to jeopardize those by sanctioning the leadership of Saudi Arabia and then potentially handing those contracts over to players from Russia or China. The president also pointing out that 17 Saudis have been sanctioned by the United States in connection with the death of Jamal Khashoggi. So that appears to be as far as the president is going to go. He is going to get that report from the intelligence agencies on who they believe is behind it. But the president already laying down a marker, Harris, that the United States has sanctioned the people that it believes should be sanctioned, and that the president is, at least for the time being, giving Mohammed bin Salman and King Salman a pass when it comes to the death of Jamal Khashoggi. Harris?
So Turkey all along has said it has at least one tape, audio, video. We don't know the complete components that they have in terms of the killing of Khashoggi. The president saying yesterday he didn't want to watch the tape at hand.
Or hear it. It was an audio tape.
What do we know about the evidence that the CIA would have looked at and what the president has or does not have in terms of not watching the tape?
Well, clearly the CIA listened to the tape, and President Erdogan of Turkey says that the tape was played for Gina Haspel, the CIA director, when she was over there doing an investigation of this a few weeks ago. Clearly, the CIA has plenty of assets on the ground in both Saudi Arabia and in Turkey. Turkish officials have been more than happy to tell what they believe is their side of the story, much more so than Saudi Arabia has. So I would think, and there were reports in the New York Times and other media outlets, that the CIA has come to the conclusion that Mohammed bin Salman did order, at the very least, the abduction, if not the killing, of Jamal Khashoggi.
All right.
But again, the president keeping that at arm's length, saying maybe he did, maybe he didn't, we'll never know, okay. So we're probably not going to do anything more than we have already done.
So does the president believe or not believe the CIA? Real quick, yes or no?
You'd have to ask him. I mean, that's a question we have asked many, many times dealing with Russia and interference in the U.S. election. And the president, on just about every occasion, has fudged on it.
All right. John Roberts, thank you. The breaking news outside the White House today. Appreciate it. I want to bring in Democrat Congressman Brad Sherman, a member of the Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman Sherman, thank you for being here. I know just a short time ago, Senate Leadership and Foreign Relations Committee staff had requesting an all-senators briefing from Haspel and Pompeo on Jamal Khashoggi. Likely happening next week when Congress is back from Thanksgiving break. So more answers to come. First, though, your reaction.
Well, it's pretty clear that the CIA report indicates that the Crown Prince ordered this brutal murder. It's also clear that there are many worse things that are happening in the Middle East, done by both Saudi Arabia and its friends and the enemies of Saudi Arabia. I think Khashoggi is getting a lot of attention in large part because he was part of the foreign policy establishment, known as a person by the U.S. foreign policy establishment here in Washington. But we need to focus on the use of food deprivation in the war in Yemen by both sides. The idea of trying to starve your enemy is a war crime. I know it's gone on for thousands and thousands of years in the Middle East, but it's not the way to conduct war.
Yeah, it's quickly becoming a historic level of a humanitarian crisis in Yemen. So that is a story that we're watching closely. I have to say, given the run-up with Democrats to this point, I interviewed Congressman Garamendi of California yesterday, and he was commenting that he didn't think that the president believed the CIA report. From what John Roberts just reported, and I knew you were watching, I asked him that question at the end, but it was really more about the fact that there was not definitive information one way or the other involving the Crown Prince.
Look, you don't know for sure very many things in this world. We're pretty confident that the Crown Prince ordered this, but the key issue here is how do we prevent Saudi Arabia from developing nuclear weapons? Because whether it's the Crown Prince that would order this or whether there are rogue elements in Saudi Arabia that can commandeer two planes and carry on an operation like this, the government in Riyadh should not have nuclear weapons. And the one thing that I think Congress needs to do is make it clear that any nuclear cooperation agreement with Saudi Arabia must be approved by Congress. I think that's the one thing that we're likely to do that would really interfere with MBS or punish him, if you would, because frankly, just sanctioning 17 thugs by saying they're not going to be allowed to visit Disneyland is insufficient.
All right. Congressman Sherman, I have to make a pretty hard turn news-wise now. Thank you for your time. We see on the left of the screen President Trump and First Lady Melania, and they are actually hosting an upbeat event right now, the presidential turkey pardoning ceremony in the White House Rose Garden. So we are going to turn from that serious matter to one that has to do with our holiday this week. And there are two turkeys that are up for pardoning. Let's listen to the president.
And Samuel. And their very beautiful families. Thank you very much for being here. Thank you. Thank you. Jeff, thank you. Thanksgiving is a time of great American traditions. And today we continue a very special one when a lucky turkey gets a presidential pardon. That turkey is so lucky. I've never seen such a beautiful turkey. It has been stated that President Abraham Lincoln, Honest Abe, was the first president to grant such a pardon after his son, Tad, befriended the Christmas turkey and implored his father, please, Dad, please save it. In this grand tradition, I am pleased to announce that today's lucky bird and guest of honor is named Peas, along with his alternate named Carrots. The children will understand that. The winner of this vote was decided by a fair and open election conducted on the White House website. This was a fair election. Unfortunately, Carrots refused to concede and demanded a recount, and we're still fighting with Carrots. And I will tell you, we've come to a conclusion. Carrots, I'm sorry to tell you, the result did not change. It's too bad for Carrots. Peas and Carrots are the very first national Thanksgiving turkeys from the very great state of South Dakota. Love South Dakota. For this occasion, we are excited to be joined by Governor-elect, a real friend of ours, Kristi Noem. Where's Kristi? Kristi, stand up, Kristi. Congratulations. She just ran a very, very great race against a very capable opponent, and that was really something special. Congratulations, Kristi. We're also happy to have Wyoming Congresswoman, friend of mine, Liz Cheney, here with us, and she just had a big victory also. Thank you. That was a great victory. They know what they're doing in Congress, Liz. Peas and Carrots were raised by a wonderful farmer from Riverside, Hutterville Colony, and this is something that he's very proud of. Reuben Waldner, I want to just thank Reuben for having done a great job. Where's Reuben? Reuben, stand up, Reuben. Great job. That's a good-looking turkey. Great job. Thank you very much. Peas and Carrots were 2 out of a group of 50 exceptional turkeys raised for this event, and you can see that by looking at them. Together, they are known as the presidential flock. After their good fortune today, Peas and Carrots will both live out the rest of their days at Gobbler's Rest on the campus of Virginia Tech, good place, where they will enjoy a beautiful private enclosure under the care of poultry science students and veterinarians. In other words, they're going to be well taken care of at Virginia Tech. However, it won't be entirely a rest. Even though Peas and Carrots have received a presidential pardon, I have warned them that House Democrats are likely to issue them both subpoenas. Nonetheless, in the spirit of Thanksgiving, I will be issuing both Peas and Carrots a presidential pardon. Unfortunately, I can't guarantee that your pardons won't be enjoined by the Ninth Circuit. Always happens. They're guaranteed. All joking aside, this is a time for Americans to unite together in a spirit of love, understanding, unity, and joy as one very proud American family. Our nation is doing well. We are now at the beginning of a national period of Thanksgiving. And as we pause to give thanks for all of the blessings that we've been bestowed, it really has been blessing after blessing after blessing. We're all very thankful. And we also pray for those in need, especially our fellow citizens impacted by the devastating wildfires in California, where I just came back. I've never seen anything like it. Probably nobody has. All American hearts are joined with theirs. We give thanks for the family, friends, neighbors, and loved ones who enrich our lives, lift our spirits, and fill our days with joy. And we give thanks to God, who continues to shed his almighty grace upon this magnificent land that we all love so very much. We are truly blessed to be Americans. This is an incredible time for our country. Prosperity is soaring all across our land. We are especially thankful for the men and women who protect our families and who protect our flag. As we gather together this week with those we love, we share our gratitude to all of those who spend this holiday very, very far from home, serving in our military overseas. We send our eternal gratitude to the heroes who keep America safe, strong, proud, prosperous, and free. And we ask God to always watch over these incredible, brave Americans as they faithfully defend our nation and as they defend our home. Now it's time to grant peas and carrots the pardon they've been waiting for. They are extremely lucky birds. Thank you, everyone. Have a very, very happy Thanksgiving. God bless you all, and God bless America. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Wow. Peas, I hereby grant you a full pardon. Thank you very much, everybody. Really great. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, I have a lot of details on peas. First of all, that's a 39-pound bird, 30 inches tall. He likes to listen to Brad Paisley. He snacks on popcorn. He's boisterous in his style. He likes ice fishing and watching planes go by. But you heard the president there. He's extending this to the alternate, too, carrots. Carrots is a big bird, 41 pounds. Her pastime apparently is yoga. No kidding. I have a little dossier here. That was very funny from the president. And you got to see peas on top of the carrier there. The president wanting to broaden it out and saying that, you know what, both of these birds will survive. Carrots is the alternate should peas become uncooperative in some way, is what we've been told. But in the meantime, he also had a very serious presidential message for this Thanksgiving holiday. He talked about Americans coming together, much like peas and carrots, and he wanted to pardon them both. He talked about our own military members serving across the holiday that's coming up in a couple of days and thanking them for their service and really pressing in the fact that we can work together as Americans. So there you have it. The traditional and official turkey pardoning at the White House. Those birds can live another Thanksgiving holiday. And we'll move on with the news now. We're learning new details about when President Trump plans to submit his written responses to questions from special counsel Robert Mueller. The potential timeline and what it will mean for that probe. Could it be ending? Republican Congressman Andy Biggs of the House Judiciary Committee joins me next. Stay close. And this is a Fox News alert. The Russia investigation has neared a critical milestone now. President Trump's attorney Rudy Giuliani now says special counsel Robert Mueller could receive written answers from the White House in, quote, the next couple of days, end quote. Chief Intelligence Correspondent Catherine Herridge. So, Catherine, this timeline has tightened suddenly.
Well, it has, Harris. In the last hour, the president's lawyer, Rudy Giuliani, confirming to Fox News that written responses to questions from special counsel Robert Mueller are likely to be turned over in the next couple of days. And he said there could be an update, in fact, later today on the timing. This sort of scenario, if you will, was first reported by CBS News. President Trump told reporters over the weekend that he had, quote, very easily answered Mueller's questions and would submit them this week. The questions focus on alleged coordination between the Trump campaign and Russian officials, and this matters prior to the November 2016 election, and not the firing of FBI Director James Comey, which would be part of an obstruction of justice case. While the president has not ruled out a sit-down interview, those close to the legal team have maintained for months it is unlikely that he will do so. Counselor to the president, Kellyanne Conway, also downplayed an in-person interview.
His attorneys have, I guess, counseled him that he should submit those answers in writing, and he has. But he's not afraid to sit down. It just doesn't seem necessary. It doesn't rise to that level.
President has spent several hours over the past week with his legal team finalizing the answers. You see the lawyers there. With the president heading to Florida for the Thanksgiving holiday, Giuliani did not comment on reporting that they've had this informal Thanksgiving deadline. But again, we were told to wait for some further developments, perhaps as later as this afternoon, Harris.
Catherine Herridge, thank you very much. I want to bring in now Republican Congressman Andy Biggs of Arizona. And of course, he sits on the House Judiciary Committee, right on time for this discussion. What do you make of where we are with this investigation? I mean, is this a signal with written answers that we are nearing the end?
Well, I think that they're coming from the president. That signals that we're close to wrapping this up. I would imagine that the next step for the Mueller team will be to thoroughly vet those answers. But I also believe that they're going to continue to press for a sit-down interview of some kind, because they're not looking for necessarily whether President Trump is associated with a crime. They're trying to find out if he committed any crime. That is to say, they're not looking for a criminal act and seeing who caused it. They're looking to see if President Trump did anything wrong. And that's just it's kind of backwards here. But I really think we're at the point where they're going to wrap it up. But I do think they're going to press for an interview.
You know, it's interesting. There had been reporting, it's been 2 or 3 weeks ago now, you may remember, that we might be hearing something from Robert Mueller, and he's been close to the vest. What do you make of that?
Well, I think that he's, he has thinned out his core of prosecutors, but I think that one of the things he's done is he has tightened it up so where the leaks that were there initially have really clamped up, so I'm happy about that. But I think keeping it close to the vest like this is a way to keep their strategy under wraps and be able to try to make the case, whatever case they're going to try and make.
You know, the president has said that he probably won't sit down with Robert Mueller. And, you know, Congressman, the way that we have been kind of watching this unfold, this would be the top of the food chain in terms of who you talk with.
Yeah, the president is who they want to talk with, which is why I think that the Mueller team's going to keep pressing. I think that's a mistake because I think that it indicates, to me anyway, that they're still on a bit of a fishing expedition trying to link President Trump up to something. Like I say, there's no real necessary, there hasn't been an act shown here. And so normally you would have a criminal act and then you'd see who caused it. That's not what we're doing here. What we're doing is we're saying President Trump is the guy we want to get. We're trying to see if there's an act in any way that we can get him. And I think just sitting down with the Mueller team would be a bad idea.
You know, Congressman, on both sides of the aisle for months, we've been hearing that, you know, Robert Mueller is a good person for this, that he's going to go, you know, and be fierce on the facts, and he wants to ride this to the end. Do you still trust him to be the guy on this investigation?
Well, I was always skeptical of Mr. Mueller's appointment, to be honest with you, and I've voiced that. I think some of my colleagues still believe that he's the guy, but you know, some of the folks that were with him to begin with have come to me and they've said, look, you know, this has been a mistake. It's been a disaster. I mean, and we've had trouble finding even, for instance, what's the scope of his investigation. So there's all kinds of problems yet with the Mueller investigation. And I do believe that they're trying to tie President Trump to something, anything.
So the president has put in the AG's place an acting attorney general, Matthew Whitaker. I'm curious from you if you think that, and we don't know what his participation would be in this investigation yet. I want to make that very clear. He would oversee it, but we don't know particularly where he would kind of interconnect, if you will. Have you met Matthew Whitaker? What do you know about him? And do you think it's problematic to have chosen this man?
Well, I've not met Matthew Whitaker. I've talked to people who know him who say he is very well qualified, that he is an honest broker. I personally believe, my understanding actually, is that he's not going to oversee this investigation, that it'll still rest with Rod Rosenstein, which means that it's going to continue on without interference at all by Mr. Whitaker.
All right. Congressman Biggs of the great state of Arizona, some of which we can see behind you.
Beautiful today.
Oh, I know it is. I'll be home tomorrow. Good to see you. Thank you.
Thanks, Harris. Good to see you.
Republicans facing a big test on whether they can further expand their Senate majority, as Mississippi's Senate race has just moved to a runoff. It happens next week between Democrat Mike Espy and incumbent Republican Cindy Hyde-Smith. Democrats seeing an opportunity to try to flip that seat. I'll talk with RNC Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel. You stay put. We are now just 1 week away from the high-stakes Mississippi Senate runoff. Incumbent Republican Senator Cindy Hyde-Smith facing off against Democrat challenger Mike Espy. Democrats say they see the normally safe GOP seat is now in play after some of Hyde-Smith's recent campaign stumbles, like praising a supporter by saying that if he invited her to a public hanging, she would go. President Trump has announced he will hold 2 rallies for Senator Hyde-Smith in Mississippi ahead of the election. Ronna McDaniel is chairwoman of the Republican National Committee. Great to see you. Thank you for being with me. What do you do with this race with some complicated comments that have been made recently?
Well, you bring it down to the policies that each of these candidates represent. Cindy Hyde-Smith is somebody who supports the president. She voted for Judge Kavanaugh to be seated on the Supreme Court. She's somebody who supported the tax cuts. She's in lockstep with the president's agenda. The president won Mississippi by 18 points. And she's going against a Democrat who's running with the progressive wing of the Democrat Party. He's had the 2020 contenders in there from the Elizabeth Warren wing of the Democrat Party. He's somebody who's been indicted. He was too corrupt for even the Clintons. He's somebody who said he wouldn't vote for Judge Kavanaugh. So voters are going to vote based on the issues about what Mississippians care about. And I think that ultimately Cindy Hyde-Smith gets reelected to the Senate.
You know, Chairwoman, you and I have talked before about how the RNC doesn't really get into the nitty-gritty on these local races. But it's Mississippi, which has a particularly horrible history when it comes to hanging. And so that kind of a comment, I'm wondering, how do you deal with that? Or is that something that you at the RNC would weigh in on?
Well, you know, I spent time with Cindy last night. She said, obviously, those comments were not intended that way. She said those, you know, that choice of words was not intended in any way to re-bring up that history. That's not something that she's going to do as a senator. She's going to represent every Mississippian. People there know her heart. They know her values. And Democrats are using this to divide, and she wants to unite the people of Mississippi.
Did she say it was a joke or a mistake?
I think the people there know her. She served as the in the Senate. She served as the Secretary of Agriculture. And if you spend time with her, you know that that is not at all what she intended with those comments. And she's made that very clear.
Let's talk about big picture. And I think it was a week before the midterm election, you and I were discussing the history that could be made in terms of the Senate with Republicans picking up seats. And you've done that. That's exactly what has happened.
Yes. So historically, in that first midterm of a sitting president, you lose on average 3 seats. We've picked up 2. We took out 4 incumbent Democrat senators in Florida, Missouri, Indiana, and North Dakota. We need to keep this seat in Mississippi. And what does that mean for the country? It means more jobs, a growing economy. The Trump agenda is working for average working Americans, and that's what we need to continue. And we have a Senate that's going to help that. And the Democrats now have a choice in the House. Are they going to work to continue this growth for our economy and work on behalf of the American people, or are they going to continue the resist and obstruct playbook that they've been using for the past 2 years?
You know, the president has said that the margin in the Senate was so slim that if, you know, something happened and one member couldn't make it for a reason or another, that you would maybe not even be benefited by the vice president breaking a tie. I mean, it could make things very complicated.
Yeah, adding those 2 seats gives a lot of breathing room. Obviously, you also have the vice president as the tiebreaker and as the president of the Senate. So this is a good election on the Senate side. It's going to give us an opportunity to continue to confirming judges, maybe get some of these ambassadors through and some of these nominations through that the Democrats have been holding up. It's been an unprecedented level of obstruction. I don't think the American people even realize how many positions are vacant because Democrats won't put them through the confirmation process. This is something that's good. We need to keep this seat in Mississippi, and that's why the president's going there. He's going to fight for every seat and every vote in the Senate.
You know, real quickly before I let you go, you're bringing up something we actually haven't talked about in a while, and that is all of the vacancies and really the troubling sign that you couldn't even fill some of the basics. Does it get easier now? And what is your first probably focus, either with that or policy?
Well, I think both. I think you've got to do both at the same time. But I don't think Americans understand the level of obstruction we've seen from the Democrats. You know, under the past 6 presidents, most of their nominations went through with unanimous consent. Under President Trump in the first 2 years, there have been 171 cloture votes. In the past 6, there were only like 24. I mean, it has been an unprecedented level of stopping this government. That means we're not putting in ambassadors in key countries, people who've gone through ambassador school. It means we're not getting people placed in the hierarchy of government to make our government function. I've never seen this in our government before, and it's not getting reported enough, but it's Bob Menendez, it's Democrats who are saying we're not going to work with this president on anything, even if it means our government won't function.
All right. Chairwoman Ronna McDaniel, thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
President Trump is signaling the United States now will not punish the Saudi crown prince over the murder of a U.S.-based columnist.
Democrat who signed the letter in opposition to her speakership. Could this infighting spell trouble for the Democrats? And Walmart asking for its campaign donations back from the Republican candidate in the Mississippi Senate runoff. We'll tell you why on the Daily Briefing.
There are terrible things happening in the Middle East that the United States has long ignored, either because it didn't directly affect our national security, such as 500,000 dead in a civil war in Syria, a proxy war between Iran and other people, such as people in Turkey, which is now raking the Saudis over the coals for Khashoggi's murder. But they have journalists in jail.
Yes.
They kill people. They repress people. There are terrible things that go on in this region. And I understand why President Trump has taken the position that he has. It is just what every other president would have done and has gone on for a long time.
Dan?
There is no plan B. That is the issue. There's no replacement for Saudi Arabia in our relationships over there in the Middle East. But the one thing I think this does alter is our relationship with Mohammed bin Salman. This really brings into question, acute question, his judgment. And I think whether it's Secretary of State Pompeo or National Security Advisor John Bolton, their relationship with Saudi Arabia is not going to be the same.
Well, you had Senator Lindsey Graham say, you know what, we shouldn't be doing any more business with Saudi Arabia. I know I see you kind of arc a smile in your face there that maybe that won't happen. By the way, we are watching, so you'll see me kind of look off camera here. At the State Department, Secretary Pompeo is expected to step up to the lectern. If that happens in the next couple of minutes, we'll take it live. Judy?
You know, if we didn't do anything after 9/11, when most of the people who carried out that horrendous attack on the United States were Saudis, and where the propaganda that Saudi Arabia has been promoting for decades was ultimately expressed in what happened at the Twin Towers, we are not going to do anything now because my friend Jamal Khashoggi, and I do think what happened to him is horrendous and unforgivable, but we are not going to do anything because one man died. Here we have national security interests versus the moral virtue and standing up for human rights.
And those national security interests are real.
They're
There's
real.
No question about
Absolutely.
it.
The president mentioned national security interests. He mentioned contracts that are at play here, the situation in Yemen, where we're watching a catastrophic humanitarian crisis unfold. And the Saudis are involved by proxy there.
And he mentioned Iran because he is obsessed with Iran. And of course, who is Iran's greatest enemy? Well, Saudi Arabia.
Right.
And you say rightfully so with Iran.
Well, Iran is trying to extend its hegemony from Iran up to the Mediterranean through